1. For some context, this all occurred after I had started a Facebook group for the film series Puppet Master. As a bit of backstory, the third film is set in World War II Germany, and the title character has a puppet show where he mocks Adolf Hitler using a puppet of him. While not a majorly important prop to the films, as it isn't one of the living puppets, castings of this puppet are desirable as it was sculpted by the same effects team that made the living puppets. Anyways, I had acquired a head casting of the puppet with lineage to the movie mold a while ago in a trade with another collector, after I started my group to have a place focused on bills and collecting and not gatekeeping or whining about how the puppets are only cool when they're the villains. I got a message from a member of my group. He asks about the price of head castings of the piece I mentioned above. I quote him the price, and he agrees to it. He gives me his PayPal info and asks me to send him a request. I do so and start in waiting for him to pay it. In the meantime, I pour up the head casting and prime it for painting. To this day, I think it was the best casting of that puppet I ever did. Anyways, at first he claims to be out of town and will pay me when he gets back. Eventually he tells me he actually lost his job and is trying to get another one now. At this point I started getting a wee bit suspicious but didn't immediately see any red flags. I was annoyed that he had me make him a casting and then didn't pay up. Luckily around this time another member of my group asked me if I could make him one as well, and he was ready to pay for it. So I sold the one I made for the first guy to him, and decided when he paid me, I would just make him a new casting. Another tall tale he told me early on was that he had a large lot of the Always Sisters dolls, which were used as the bodies for several of the puppets. I asked him for pictures of them, but he claimed to have them all in storage and needed them for his own builds, despite only 4 or 5 of the puppets having that body type. More disturbingly, he also kept showing me his creepy collection of World War II German stuff. Even after I asked him to stop, he acted all offended, saying that he was simply interested in the historical value. Despite this claim, it really came off like he was pitching a tent over this stuff. He claimed I was accusing all people from Germany in that time period of being Nazis. They weren't, but he is specifically collecting Nazi memorabilia with swastikas very prominent on multiple pieces. And finally, he claimed it was all stuff that André Toulon, the puppet master, would have collected in his travels. I call BS. Toulon hated the Nazis, and given that they mentioned his wife is Jewish, I do not see him having a pair of SS boots made in Auschwitz. The only reason I kept up with him, despite his Nazi fetish, lack of payment, and, honestly, some of the weird-as-hell behavior, sending me a cartoon of Mario telling a boy in a bathtub to remember to wash your foreskin. Seriously, what the fuck? And his douchey way of responding to stuff I said, i.e. a bunch of laughing emojis to me saying I lack uniformity to my replicas, was 2 things. He sent me a picture of what he claimed was a casting of the head of Six Shooter, another puppet from Part 3, from the movie mold, which he claimed was acquired from the nephew of David Allen, the head of effects for the first 5 films. However, the photo was really blurry, but he wouldn't send a better, claiming the photo should be good enough. The other was that he claimed he was going to be getting a set of files from another builder who most people in the fandom know about. These were for the throne that the puppet Jester used in Part 2. I knew the guy he was talking about had those files and had previously offered them to people, provided he got a copy, so this seemed plausible. He told me he would get the files from the guy who made them once he found a new job. After a while, I messaged him to check in. He claimed he had struck it rich because of some investments in legal cannabis. Note the guy lives in Canada. I asked about the throne file, since now, supposedly, he had money. Here is the text of what followed. Speaking of projects, any update on the throne? I'm not worried about that anymore. I've been trying to get my financial portfolio ready for a bank, and for an investment firm because of how much money I'm coming into. I'm going to start my own business and hire people to run it for me. And eventually, franchise. And my only worries will be the order of what countries I want to vacation in. For priorities, the throne is my least concern at the moment, because I have really big stuff on the go. I think it goes without saying this guy is completely wackadoodle. I'm willing to bet he doesn't even understand that businesses provide either a service or a product. I think he actually thinks he'll just get a storefront and people will simply walk in and enter their wallet so he can be rich. I asked him one thing about the 6-shooter head, which he had never replied to. After that, I removed him from my group and told everyone I knew in the hobby to avoid doing business with him, showing them the screen cap of the conversation as proof of how nuts he is. Since then, he's changed the name on his Facebook account multiple times. Ultimately, I think he legitimately just strung me along to drive me nuts, because that's how he makes himself feel good. His arrogance and mockery just strengthen my opinion. Can't really be that mad, since I still made money by selling the casting he ordered but never paid for to someone else. But still, just what the hell? That being said, I learned my lesson regarding commissions from new customers. Always be wary until they actually pay. 2. My client bought a house. The previous owner had dementia and Alzheimer's, and the family had a hard time finding all her stuff and cleaning the house, because she had put stuff in weird places in confusion. My client knew this. He was told they had a hard time finding some of her things but weren't specific about what they were still looking for. My client moves in, and while he's renovating and moving in, he finds hidden in the back of the attic a jewelry box. He immediately runs to the local jeweler to appraise the jewelry, approximately $5,000. He happily returns home thinking he found the jackpot. Since they're living in a small town, the jeweler knew the relatives and told them the client had found their mother's jewelry box, the box they couldn't find. The relatives are outraged and send him a letter demanding him to hand over their heirlooms. He comes to me, claiming that he bought the house and everything inside of it. So whatever is left behind is now his, and if he did not get ownership of the box, does he at least deserve some compensation? Unfortunately for him, the contract stated that the house would be transferred empty and vacated. According to the law here, that means he did not get ownership of the box by buying the house. Everything left found, he has to return to the owner and relatives. Here, when you find something, special laws apply. You don't get ownership when you find something. In a nutshell, when you find something, you have to go to the township and report it. If the items are not claimed within a year, then and only then you get ownership. Of course, this is different when you find something on the street and nobody ever finding out you picked it up. But finding something in a house and the relatives knowing you found it changes the story. So I explained to him and he says, well, the owner has died. Who says that they got ownership of the box then? I was already disgusted by him, but after that comment I was just done. I go from formal to bitch mode and say, have you ever heard of heritage? To which he has the audacity to say, yeah, but I heard they weren't very close with their mom. At this point I'm losing it. I asked him, if one day your mother would die, would the neighbors have a free pass to empty her house based on how they perceived your relationship with her? Or would it be up to you to decide about her possessions? He's grumbling at this point. I told him the consequences of not returning the jewelry. He could actually face criminal charges. And tell him, in that case, I am unable to represent him. Then and only then he gets concerned. I ended the conversation telling him that it's morally reprehensible what he's doing, and he should be happy the family has not consulted a lawyer yet, because I would have sent them to the police straight away. A few days later, he forwards me the email he had sent as a reply to the family. He claims he only appraised the jewelry out of curiosity, and had not found the time to contact them due to the move, but he was definitely going to give the jewelry back. He ended his email saying, I'll leave it up to you, the family, to decide whether a finder's fee is appropriate or not. Sometimes I hate my job. 3. I've been mostly lucky and had decent neighbors. Nobody bothers anyone in my neighborhood, and everyone is very kind, most of the time. I have lived here for 6 years at this point, and have never had conflict with the people who live around me. I had a dog, a husky Aussie mix, and everyone loved her. She was so friendly. She did take to wandering away from the yard in her old age, and preferred to be outside most of the time, so I set up a lead for her. This way I wasn't worried about her wandering the busy streets she liked to cross to visit the goat farm. Like I said, everyone loved her, and I was never called by my name, but Sid's mom, so I was very surprised to see this little green baggie of dog poop in my mailbox with a note taped to it. For all the presents your dog has left in my yard, I look forward to not receiving them anymore. When I got this, I was stunned. I had put my dog down the week before, and had an at-home vet come to do it. It took place in my front yard because of COVID. It was horrible, but the vet was supportive and lovely, and made it as good of an experience as they could. Anyway, my initial reaction was to knock on the door of every home in the area to find out who left it and throw poop in their face. I didn't. Instead, I wrote a letter that I put in everyone's mailbox about how they were misinformed or a terrible person. I wished them the karma they deserved and thought that would be that. I was wrong. I talked to the neighbors who share my driveway. There are 4 of us, and turns out she put poop in all of our mailboxes, which is like wild. I also found out she is the one who got power lines because they interfered with her fairy lights. I live in a mountain, and the transformer sits higher up, and the lines are easy for her to access. Cut to a few weeks ago, my mom is on my front porch, and this woman comes storming up my driveway and yells, "I know you have a black dog!" And my mom stared at her and said, "Oh, you're the poop lady." Poop lady says nothing, then asks about a black dog. Sid was caramel-colored. My mom said no, and she insisted somebody on this driveway did, and no, we don't. One is a yellow labhound mix, and the other is a red and white boxer. My mom said no, she was crazy and to leave. My mom could then hear her throwing a nuclear temper tantrum. After this, she started watching me from her driveway when I got home, undoubtedly to catch me with this black dog. I started waving, and she scowls right back. Once again, I thought this was over. Then I come home to find someone stole my raised flower bed. It was empty, as I was getting it ready and didn't have enough soil. Spoiler, it was the poop lady. The worst part is it's the garden I do every summer for my late grandfather who loved gardening. I really want to go cut her stupid little fairy lights, but instead I'm waiting on my Ring doorbell. 4. So my brother-in-law to this day still lives with my in-laws. He's in his early 30s. From what my wife's told me, and I've seen enough evidence to affirm her statements, they've spoiled him rotten his entire life. He's adopted, of the fair complexion, as opposed to my wife's and in-laws' melanin-rich tones, so she suspects some odd fantasizing on their part that I won't really get into, but could definitely see them participating in. He could burn water, he's that inept, eats nothing but crap food, is horrendously overweight, doesn't have a job, and actively refuses to get one unless you're doing all the legwork for him. Gets to go out to the Disney and Universal parks all day and throws a tantrum anytime he's asked to do any kind of chores, to name a few issues I have with him. He's also super creepy towards my kids, and given a history that's not really mine to explain, but you can guess, that's grounds enough for me to not want him within a mile of my family. He still demands I respect because, "I'm an adult and your uncle, so you have to respect me." But I have to put up with him because I try not to rock the boat as much as possible. My wife's relationship with her parents is rocky enough as it is. A real-life Cinderella story. We got married in 2015, and her parents invited themselves to our place on base housing to come see our new home. Of course, they bring EMC, the entitled man-child, with them. This EMC has already been stuffing his face with what little snack foods we've got in the house. Didn't ask to my recollection, because we're family and families share what they have when family visits, or some such tripe my mother-in-law said. Not too long after, he starts berating and bullying my at this time 10-year-old son. A grown man bullying a barely double-digit child by name-calling. I'm still new to the step-parent, new husband role and don't want to overstep, so I let my wife start to handle this. She asks him to stop as it's upsetting our son. He does for a little bit, but goes right back at it a few minutes later. Once again, my wife asks him to knock it off, and that his behavior won't be tolerated in our home, and that he starts having another of his ungodly tantrums. As soon as, "Well, Mom says," comes out of his mouth, I put my foot down, both literally and figuratively. I do not tolerate any disrespect towards my wife, strangers, kids, or family be damned. The new house is mostly wood flooring on the first floor, and my voice already carries pretty well, so the entire house goes silent when I spoke up. "Is this her house? Is this yours, no? Then shut the fuck up when the people whose house you're in tell you to knock something off." The MC is just standing there looking like some flabby fish out of water with an open mouth, gasping and wide-eyed in terror that someone dared to correct him. He then ran upstairs and cried to my in-laws about how he was aggressive and scary towards me and I don't feel welcome in this home. Gee, I wonder why. My father-in-law pulled my wife aside and demanded something be done about my behavior, because that's no way for family to behave towards one another. She told me all this, and to this day I still don't apologize for anything that they deem rude or unseemly, because that one instance of their 6-foot sack of turds behavior tells me they have no room to criticize anyone on parenting or general behavior. Another reason he may not like me would be probably because I embarrassed the hell out of him for acting like a Nimrod while we were on vacation. For context, we were staying at a hotel her parents had booked with their points, and I was on crutches at the time for a broken foot. This man-child had my, at the time, I want to say around 8-year-old daughter up in the air, spinning her around, standing immediately next to a pool. Obviously, I could not ambulate fast enough to intercede physically, so I had to call out from across the courtyard, "EMC, put her down now!" which drew everyone in the vicinity's attention to his idiocy. I finally stick my happy ass over to him, and he is looking all kinds of indignant. He asks, how dare I interrupt his time with his niece, and I tell him, "Because you're putting her life in danger, you colossal moron. You're not even a foot from the side of the pool. What in God's green earth made you think that this was an okay idea?" "Well, I'm her uncle," was all he had to counter with. "And I am her father, and I say put her down." Now he and I get into a staring match at this point, and he thinks he's gonna win because I'm on crutches and he's already naturally taller than me at around 6 foot. I, however, was a hard-charging lance corporal at the time, and didn't fear man, beast, or God, let alone this fat sack of excuse for humanity. He broke first and stormed off to tell his parents what happened. They tried to have a conversation with me about how what I did was inappropriate, and I just balked at them and asked them how they could condone the blatant endangerment of their granddaughter by this buffoon. They had nothing else to say. 5. My wife and I just bought our first house. It was a big deal. We have a baby on the way in a few months and needed the space, which it has in space, twice the size of the apartment I moved out of. The only curiosities were, 1, no inspections. Market here is viciously sellers, denying an offer for a requested inspection is common here. 2, seller wasn't in the country for the sale. Moved to the Philippines after discharge from the military. Well, whatever, we figure at the price point, about $60K lower than any other area we found, and the age, built in 2002, and the semi-renovation he did, new countertops, new sinks, we would buy it without the inspection. As I am sure you can guess, there was an issues in fact. Kitchen fixture built out of stuck-together PVC pipes, like the kind your kids would play with, marked Tonka, which filled, of course. 2, as the plumber rebuilt the fixture, he was laughing harder and harder at what he pulled out, describing it as, "what a child-playing plumber would build." 3, plumber called in water damage repair folks, who completely ripped out all my cabinets due to the extent of the water damage. Thankfully covered by insurance, because damage occurrence timing is unprovable. 4, when I attempted to contact previous owner, because he didn't disclose his changes to piping, which is litigible, and a lawyer to potentially sue civilly, was told, due to being in a country without extradition laws, as long as he doesn't return, my lawsuit means nothing. Which means I take it from behind. But wait, there's more. Every other fixture is also bad, like another $2,300 worth. And that with buying the fixtures myself first, because he used discontinued Walmart crap fixtures. So due to the housing market here, my zero-down VA loan cost me $20,000 to buy, plus $3,200 to replace piping, $2,300 to fix the rest of the house's fixtures, and $3,100 for the insurance deductible. I'm looking at $10,000 for repairing something that would have been a fraction of that to repair before the damage. All because of one person who didn't care. Not sure what to do besides pay it off and call it growing pains. Thanks if you've listened this far. Just needed to vent about this dude. Now for those about to comment or admonish the inspection not happening. We had been home searching for a year. My wife was at that point pregnant. We had lost 2 offers for requesting inspections alone. This property came in low, and there was a strange occurrence involved in getting this place. I ended up using my IRA loan, so at least I'm giving most of the payback to myself. Strange thing, we didn't make the offer. We took over an offer that another couple had made. Dummies bought a brand new car while closing to celebrate promotion from E4 to E5, which, as anyone military can attest, is a small jump. Not go buy a boat massive increase. Not sure I made any more intelligent of a decision here, but the loan I got means I can afford a full inspection and verify what's what. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 62. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'd appreciate it if you took this video and threw it out the window. Alright, maybe don't do that. How about instead you share it around with all your friends, family, if you happen to be going to a high school reunion or anything like that, share it around with the people there as well. Spread the word of Hellfreezer. Okay, we are on Thursday as when this originally went up. Obviously, those days don't matter in the future. In the weird, mysterious future where these videos are being listened to by giant ants. All of whom are named Steve. But anyway, let's see. Maybe Steve would be interested in Hellfreezer's question of the day. And in keeping with giant ants like Steve, which creature do you have, a pet, an animal, whatever it might be, it may not be something you'd have as a pet, do you wish was a different size? Like, I think it would be really cool if you could have, like, a pocket-sized elephant. You know, one you could just run around in the house. And I could put little hats on them. It'd be kind of cool. So, which would you like? Maybe it'd be something bigger. Oh, if I was going to make something bigger, what would it be? I think giant bunny rabbits. So we could hop through traffic. Okay, let me know what your answers are in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.